candles like lemongrass or lemongrass with some herbs and stuff. They say it's for focus. And you know what? While I'm usually skeptical about scents making you do certain things, it actually does. I feel like I'm very productive. But that also might be just the fact that it's here. The circumstance being that it's in a place where I'm usually very productive in the first place. So anyway, last time I wasn't able to figure out what was going on with my hard drive. It turns out I just needed to update my my computer. What's going on? Welcome. And so I'll be able to go through the actual sessions, show you guys how I made the beat for Signal, which I dropped 2 weeks ago, and then the one from last week, which is FREER. They're pretty simple. Everything that I do is pretty simple. So, I mean, I'm not going to complicate it too much with words either. So, I guess let me put this stuff up first. I'm supposed to be going up to Arkansas. I'm not supposed to be. I'm scheduled to. I'm going up to Arkansas for my fiance's birthday. I'll be learning getting a bunch of cool views, and I think we're going to shoot a video while we're up there as well. Oh, damn, I wasn't. Get up in the camera a little bit more. So, that ought to be neat, and I'm going to try to put it up there for you guys to see. And I have some other interesting stuff, like not just music and stuff, that kind of supports music that'll be coming out soon. I'll be finagling with some ideas to give you guys just a little more value, you know. Anyway, I'm going to start with Signal. Let me open this thing up. Okay. Pardon there's people cutting grass. I don't know where you guys live, but here in southern Louisiana, I'm like 5 minutes from the coast, and the weather's been really bad as of late. Last couple months, it's just been like super rainy and whatnot. So now that it's not, and it's been dry for more than 2 or 3 days in a row, everybody's cutting the grass and stuff. So I apologize in advance. Anyway, so in terms of this, I mean, it was pretty simple. I don't know if I used a sample. I didn't. So I played this one right on home row. I do have like a little MIDI thing, but I never use it. It's actually kind of inconvenient. But I guess let's just start with it. I'm right here, another rainy year. I'm right here. Yeah. So what I always do, whatever I start with, is it's almost always like either the sample or the I call it the creative aspect. So, you know, whatever is to me is the most inspiring part, which sometimes can be like a bass line or drum sample, but most of the time, 99.9% of the time for me, it's you know, the instrument or whatever the sample that's going on. So in this one, I think I use Omnisphere too. And it's literally just a piano, an ambient space piano. And, you know, whatever, I played it, boom, boom, boom. And then after I got that, everything that I always do, after that, what I do for every single beat, English, is usually something that keeps tempo, like a metronome. I always call it the metronome instrument. So it's usually a clap snare or something to that effect. In this particular instant, I actually rotated throughout the song. I switched back and forth between a clave and a snare. Claves, if you don't know, are like these things that they use to keep time, and just like it sounds like a wooden hollow thing that you hit, which as it happens is used as a metronome in a lot of cases, at least for like in concert bands and things like that, in those kind of scenarios. So yeah, I kind of did that, and I had a lot of reverb onto it, and so, you know, as far as reverbs, like on my metronome instruments, snares and things like that, I always kind of go with whatever. It's like it changes the dynamic of whatever the piece is, the creative piece, right? So in this case, it's a piano and stuff. this kind of gives it more of like a beeping monitor in a hospital. So it's like you're already primed for some kind of like a sad, like toned, cooler toned song or whatever. I don't know. That's just the way my mind thinks. So if you have more an upbeat song, I use a lot less reverb on that metronome piece, which in this case is a clave. And I do switch to the snare, I think, and I don't do this a lot. I don't like to switch too much. It's confusing to listeners, but in this case it worked out. I switched to a snare for the verses, which, same thing. I just had the exact same reverb, just found something else and EQ'd it to wherever it sounded right. So the next thing I usually do after that is I add hi-hats. Same kind of deal here. I rotated between hi-hats and then shakes. I don't use a lot of shakes in my songs because they're not conducive for hip-hop and R&B most of the time. But they worked out well here. So this is less of a shake. I called it a shake. It's more like I don't know. You know what I mean? It reminds me of somebody getting like a broom or something, like one of those wheat brooms and straw brooms, and like dragging across something. And I wanted something that would kind of sound like it was going across the back of the song. I don't know why, what was going through my head, but I never do know, right? That as well as tambourines right here. When you do tambourines and stuff, or when I do tambourines and stuff, I like to make sure that tambourines are inherently a live sounding instrument. So if you're going to be putting in tambourines, make sure you're going in and you're changing the velocities a little bit. So it's not just, your straight consecutive metronome sounding. That's terrible. Something I like to, I find that is a regular theme in my songs is that it's like almost a trap sound in a lot of things, like in terms of the melodic pieces, and then a lot of the drums tend to be like live sounding or whatever. But that's just that comes from where I develop my taste in music and stuff, and so it's different for every person. But a good rule of thumb is if it feels wrong, it feels like it should sound more live or sound whatever, don't worry about whatever genre you're producing in. Just do what you think is going to sound good, because that's what other people think sounds good. Trust me. And then the hi-hat. Oh, shit. That scared the fuck out of me. So, so the hi-hats. I turned it up, by the way, because I didn't know if you guys could hear. So obviously hi-hats made more sense for there to be less change in the actual velocities. So you don't actually need like a pad or anything to go and do your velocities on your hi-hats and stuff. You can just literally go in whatever DAW it is, they all offer it, and you can actually go and switch it up and down. Usually I don't get too crazy with it. It's usually just I alternate them. One, every other one is going to be low, but I don't go the first, second, third, fourth, fifth in different sequences, not unless I'm trying to do like a build, like a crescendo or a decrescendo. That's really it. And then after I do all those, so at that point, whatever, you got your shakes, claves, and snares. Which is simple, right? I didn't do anything crazy. And then usually under that, I just kind of put the kick. And the kick is kind of whatever I'm feeling at the moment. You're always, a lot of times, you're going to hear similar kick patterns for a lot of people, especially if you're producing your own song. So I'm sure a lot of mine kind of sound similar, because there's a certain way that I prefer to rap on a song or to perform on a song anyway. And that's okay. I feel like kicks are the least important part in terms of making sure they're different from song to song, because they're just supposed to be this fundamental piece that drives, and that the rest of the song can kind of sit on. And I don't have 808s in this one, so let's see what I do with this. And I don't put reverb on your kicks. Always keep your kicks in mono and don't put reverb on them. I mean, I guess you can, but don't. Yeah, so I mean, and a lot of times too, like I break a lot of my own rules. I try to give a lot of space in the low end, but in this one it just felt like, which is weird because it was a slower feeling song at first, and it just, I don't know, when I was laying out the kicks, I go with what it feels like. A lot of times whenever I imagine, especially when I'm producing or writing the lyrics, those two particular parts, I kind of imagine what the sample part, so in this case, right, this, I'll imagine like driving in a car. Now I'm driving in a car already here. You know, what does it look like outside through the windshield and stuff? Is it raining? Is it nighttime, daytime, whatever? Is the moon out? Is it cloudy, overcast? All those different things. That's how I make every single song. That's how I produce every single song. Because to me, everything's supposed to be a song that you're yelling into your windshield. That's just how I like to do it. And then, yeah, whatever. So I also don't try to make them all one cohesive experience, not to the end. So I just kind of do whatever sounds right, but I do it in the order I told you. So first the sample, or in this case, I actually wrote it out, but the creative part, the piano or whatever, what have you, and then your metronome piece, so your snares, claves, whatever claps that you have that keeps you on beat. They're usually on the same in the same places from song to song. Oh shit. And then, you know, then I do the hi-hats and shakes and stuff like that. Stuff that can, sorry about that. Stuff that can, you know, they kind of drive the song and give you like ups and downs and whatever in your 8 bars and stuff. And then the kick to kind of like rest it all on top of. But I do it with the sounds on. I don't ever turn the other things off because they all need to make sense together. So in that way, I guess I do kind of make them cohesive. But at the end is whenever I really start to EQ and kind of make them sound good together. Until then, the most important thing really is sound selection and then laying them out in a sequence that makes sense to you. So maybe you start with hi-hats. I don't know. Anyway, so you got portions of the song that ends up like this. I'm going to play 8 bars where it kind of transitions, but this is essentially how the entire song goes. Too, right, is when it comes to arrangement, I think that's like the most underutilized for a lot of like people who are starting to learn. They think they just need to get a cool sequence and let the thing ride the whole time. Please don't do that. You know, make it like take things in and out, switch back and forth. And this one, I was having a hard time feeling the song without all the other stuff except for in the hook. So that's why I have hi-hats, but also shakers and tambourines, and then clave switching over to a snare. Usually I don't do that, but in this case it was my version of arranging the song without really having to take out key elements and stuff like that. I just replace whatever that is as the song progresses. And then in terms of, I mean, vocals, you know, it is what it is. So that's how I made the beat for this song. One thing I like to always say too is that the beat is not done until you put your vocals. That's the final instrument, you know what I mean? And so that's why I like to have space, and because you really need your vocal to be the main thing, and that's why I have a lot of like harmonies and stuff like that in my songs, because to me, if you think your vocal sounds too plain and you need some more stuff, it's not in the background. It's you should be doing that, you know what I mean? So for a good example, and then I'll move on to FREER, is at the beginning of Signal, I start with, you know, now you guys can't hear that, right? But what I did, if you're listening into in headphones or even on your own phone, if you turn it sideways, is that I got that I'm right here on one side, and it's like low, whatever, and then another 80 years, and it's just kind of going back and forth or whatever. So it's like I use my vocals as another like little instrument instead of finding something else to fill that space. And you know, that's in my opinion, that's how I guess not in my opinion, that's just how I do it. I guess because there's other people who don't do it at all like me, and I really like their music, so I shouldn't say that's the right or wrong way to do it. It's just how I do it. Or at least that's how I think. Because some people get to the same, you know, end point. They get there, the same, you know, to the same place in a finished product, and they'll have just completely different processes of getting there. You know what I mean? Anyway, so FREER. And make sure everything's turned off before I start this time. Last time I scared the shit out of myself. So this one was a sample. I don't remember where I got it from, but it was from one of those places that they do it for free and stuff. And so that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. that I always forget to say. But, you know, a lot of people say don't be afraid to just, like, chop up samples and then use them legally or whatever. I honestly, there's so many people creating music these days. You can go on any of those free sites. You can get, like, you can go to Splice, which is really good. I really, really like Splice. I did not get this one from Splice. But, you know, Looperman, there's a bunch of different places that people feel frowned upon to go there or whatever. But if you can find the good stuff now, in some of those places like Looperman, you have to dig a little bit harder to find some good content. But when you do, you know, it's free. Like, you don't need to go and be some kind of throwback, let me find some sample, chop it up and do it, and oh, I'm so hard. Everyone can do that if they put a certain amount of time in it, but what are you trying to do? For me, I'm trying to make music, man. I'm not trying to sit there and play and then show people, hey, look how good I am. I'm just trying to make music, like, period, and put it out. So, so with samples like this, you got to be really careful because there's a lot going on already. Some of the stuff that I do here, you'll hear it switch over. So it switches over as soon as the song actually starts and I introduce the percussion. And I do that because, not because a lot of people think I do that for space and vocals and stuff. And if you record right and you process your vocals properly, you don't need to do that. That's not real. But for what it is for me, or I guess the way I do it, it's not a problem. But anyway, the reason I do that though is make more space actually for the snares and the hi-hats on the high end, and then on the low end make snares for the 808s and kicks, things like that. Because it's actually, I think a lot of people think of it wrong. They're trying to get and I think it's because a lot of people get a beat from somebody else and then they need to make space for their vocals in that beat. Since if you create your own, you only need to make space for the drums and stuff to sit in the sample or the creative that you're using. Like in the last one is piano. For this one, it's an actual sample I got from somewhere. And if that space is there and then you're able to put everything in space as it's supposed to be, then it doesn't become a problem for your vocals because everything is not sitting on top of each other as it is. It's got its own place to be, and then your vocal fills in the rest, like I said before. So, again, I started with snares. Now, in retrospect, like I'm telling you guys, you have to be careful because if the sample has a lot going on, don't do too much. I did way too much in this song in retrospect, but it's all good. You know what I mean? So, this is a little more of a, to me, in my opinion, I'm not good with like genres and stuff like that. So when people talk to me about, oh, you know, he's a punk soul kind of, I don't fucking know, man. I make music. That's it. So I guess in my opinion, this snare sounds a little more trappy because it's got a little more of that bite to it and stuff. That's kind of how I categorize it. But I put a little bit of, I put too much reverb, and you know, these are the kinds of things that you learn, but you can only do that by going. And it's not like it's a terrible song, you know what I mean? It's pretty good, but you have okay. So anyway, you got your metronome going on. I actually also added some crowd sounds in here because I was in love with that sound. So I just and by itself is not terrible. I probably could have started the song like this, but instead I went straight into the whole thing, and it kind of built well actually though. So, right, like I said, I always do the hi-hats after. If I can't ever have a point in time where the snare and hi-hats are by themselves and it sounds good, I'll make sure I'll add something like an open hat or something, because usually your hi-hat and snares should be able to go together by themselves. Your snares and your kick should always be able to go together by themselves. And if you can produce it in that way, then whenever you go to arrange the song, you won't have as many decisions to make, because you know you can do portions with the snare here and whatever. And you can do just portions where you take out all the drums and let the whole thing kind of breathe or whatever. So in this case, I added an open because I felt like there could have been a little bit more. Now you see what I'm talking about, though. The crowd and the snare, the metronome sounds, they're trap sounds, right? And then a hi-hat sounds more open, and I'm pretty sure this open, sounds more live. Pretty sure the open sounds more live too. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, because I like to blend it up. So that means what I'm trying to say is there's no rules, right? When you're making music, you do whatever you got to do to make whatever it is that's in your head get here. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's not about proving, showing your friends something hard. It's about making this, what's here, show up there, because that's cool every time. And then, I use the 808s in most cases. I'll solo that because I use when you do hear me use 808s, it's usually to kind of give more of this like a bounce to a song. Like I know the kick, to me, I like to rest it on the kicks, rest the song on the kicks, and let it kind of drive it. I guess it kind of nudges it along. But 808s to me are supposed to really give you more of a foundation, more of this like a groove. You know what I mean? But I guess that's just kind of how I grew up listening and making music. So and I mean it's just boom 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 boom, and it has nothing to do with the sample, but it just kind of gives a little more character. You know what I mean? Builds the song into what it is I had in here. You put the rest of it on. You know what I mean? So, and then that's it. That's how you make that song. But in terms of, I always like to give a little piece on vocals too, because I feel like that's ignored. I know when I was learning, everybody wants to show you how to make a beat. Nobody wants to show you how to do or show you how to produce vocals in some weird way, but they never want to show you how to make it together. So I didn't have to take out all that, make space for the beat like people do, because I produced it in such a way that when I recorded it without having to do anything, it was already sitting. You know what I mean? So that's something I had to learn as I went. I didn't just know this at the beginning. Was just to produce it with that in mind. And of course, you don't know what that sounds like until you've done it a bunch of times incorrectly. You know what I'm saying? So in this case,
I feel freer than I ever been. Even as a child, they had me chock full of Ritalin. Couldn't play the part of the square I was sitting in. Instead, I took the role the universe had got me fitted in it.
A lot of times, you have to just make your vocal clean, I think, right? Because if you don't process them right, and to me, what I mean process, I don't mean contort, twist, and chop it up, and take out all the low end, and whatever the fuck people do. To me, it's just like, if you have a lot of like rumbly shit, or maybe you're hitting the mic stand a lot, or whatever hell, you got something like that, like the low stuff, or there was a car passing in the back while you're recording, cut out a little bit more low end than you need, because a lot of time that will, you know what I mean, that'll free up some space, as well as if you were it was a low bassy song, like in terms of your vocals, start looking at the boomy areas, or maybe some of the muddy areas or whatever. It's like, kind of work your way up the frequencies, or once you start getting better, you kind of just know where that pocket is where you need to fix things. And then for me personally, I only really do a small amount of like boosting at the top for clarity, but that's only because I also boost somewhere in the middle, around 9 to 1200 for, I don't know. That's to me a nice sounding part of my vocal. And then I'm always taking down like around 28K, just because. And it's really short too. I'm not talking about this massive, like it's a tiny, really tiny cut. Like the Q is 4. And I just take it up because over there is like where I hear like some squeaky frequencies. And that's like on every vocal, right? I don't go on every vocal because I hear a lot of people do this. I wasted so much time doing this. They'll go on every single one of their vocals, every single track. And they'll go and they'll take a band and they'll go across. I'll do that. I used to do that, and just try to find what it is. Where's this little disgusting, whatever. And the thing is, a lot of times it doesn't even exist until you start doing that. So really, your vocal sounds fine. Just trust in that. And then as you go on, you'll notice there's always like a certain thing. And the reason why this thing in, 28K bothers me is probably because I boost a little bit of the high end in the first place. So that's why it's even sticking out. And then all the other things I kind of just put in. And you can't always do that, right? So I have a template that I like to do. It's only got 4 moves in it: a small low cut, a boost at the top, something in the middle, and then a cut, in the upper mids or something like that, whatever you want to call it, 28K. And I have to turn those things on and off depending on the mix. if I have a lot going on in the sample itself and the snares and everything. So really, that's a better way to look at it in terms of, are the frequencies of my voice, is there so much going on that it's not going to be clear on no matter where I put it, you know? Or is it that, you know, like did you just get a producer to send you an entire song and now it's like all a brick of audio and you're trying to fit your vocal inside of it? You know, that's two different problems. But if you're producing your own, it's easier. And the reason I even do these how I made the beat kind of videos is because I want to show you guys, you know, that whole complete thing. Essentially everything I'm doing in this journey, from just starting to the huge things I want to do in the future, you know, just in terms of just everything, in terms of the moves I want to make once I get there and, you know, I'm well established and stuff. Everything's just literally, I want to show you guys the things I wish somebody showed me, you know what I mean? On top of the fact that I just love doing it, so might as well do both while I'm going, because then it's harder to do in retrospect. No one wants really, like, one of the benefits of me doing this every week is that at some point I'm going to have to explain this to people when they actually care. And when you're already there, no one wants to listen to you about the struggles you had whenever, you know what I mean, you were sleeping in your car back then. Like, you obviously don't sleep in, it's been a very long time since you had to sleep in your car or whatever. So yeah, you don't relate to that person, and the way that they think and the things that they say are tainted by all the good things that happened to them from their hard work. It's a weird thing to say, but, you know, it's less relatable and less applicable to my circumstance or your circumstance or whoever, if you're watching this, you know what I mean? At that point. And plus, things change. You know, broke today is not broke before. So if, like, 5 years from now I'm trying to, like, tell people about in an interview or something how I did this my way or whatever, it wouldn't make sense. It's not applicable because my standard of living, the equal of that 5 years from now or 10 years from now, it's just not the same. The music industry won't be the same. The way that you know, streams and you collect money and stuff, hopefully it improves, but it won't be the same. And anyway, that's why I like to do this every single week. But that's how I made the beat for Signal. That's how I made the beat for FREER. And now that I've got everything set up properly, every single week I'm going to come through and just do this on the weekends. If anybody had any questions at this point is when I would have answered anything, you know what I mean? That way it's only just one beat or one song, so we're not doing two like this and staying on the live for like 20, 30 minutes. But anyway, for everybody who stopped through, I appreciate you. Much love. And anybody who ends up seeing this afterwards, if you have any questions you want me to answer in the next one, because I'm going to be doing the same exact thing next time, except, you know, less time, feel free to leave the questions there. I'll answer in the next one, or just show up in the next one, you know what I'm saying? Doing this every weekend. It's starting to look like I like to do them on Sundays, so I guess Sundays. Either way, you know, it's going to be on the weekend, and I'll always post that morning if I'm doing a live later that day. So anyway, appreciate y'all. Much love. I'm going to see y'all in the next one. You know what it is.